Good evening, everyone. I'm Rakhi Gautam from greytHR, the moderator for the session today. I welcome you all today to our 59th Parichay webinar. The topic for today is Empowering the Workforce of Tomorrow, Embracing Seamless Onboarding and Flexible Work. Now, before I dive into the topic, let's do a little housekeeping on how the session goes. So the session is divided into two parts. The first part will be the discussion with our experts today, which will then be followed by an audience Q&A. So the audience Q&A is where time is all yours, dear attendees. If you have any questions, you can start putting across that in the Zoom control panel of Q&A option, and we will take them up towards the end. Also, the session is currently being recorded. So if you happen to miss out on anything, do not worry at all. We've got you covered. We will share the recording with you once it is done. And also, this will be available on our greytHR's YouTube official channel. You can always go back there and watch it later. So I think now, without any further delay, let's start the session. In an ever-evolving landscape where remote and flexible work have become the norm, mastering effective onboarding and adapting to flexible work arrangements is paramount. Today, we will delve into innovative strategies and proven techniques to seamlessly integrate new talents into your organization while harnessing the power of flexibility. In the next 1 hour, we are going to discuss this in detail with our experts, Mr. Abhishek Dey, Vice President, Talent Experience at Highradius, and Mr. Renjith KK, Head HR KITCO Limited. So before we start our conversation, let me quickly take you all through our speaker's profile. With over 14 years of experience in HR, Abhishek has developed and implemented talent strategies for diverse and high-growth organizations across various domains and geographies. Having worked across large companies like TCS, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Alcon, and Uber, he has been recognized as one of the top influencers in HR. I'm sure we are all very eager to learn from Abhishek today. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Rakhi. And welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Moving on, introducing you to our another expert, Renjith KK, Head HR KITCO Limited. Renjith specializes in co-creating talent solutions for organizations and leaders, fostering their success through strategic coaching that enhances effectiveness and promotes mutual learning. With a strong passion for positive psychology and a continuous pursuit of knowledge in leadership, he serves as a transformation catalyst for partners and stakeholders. Thank you so much, Renjith, for joining us today. It is a pleasure to have you here with us.
It is all mine. Thank you, greytHR and you, Rakhi. And it's a great pleasure to learn from Abhishek as well. Looking forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think without any further delay, we can start the discussion. So I'll start with Abhishek. My first question to you is, let's start with the basics. What do you think? How can organizations ensure a seamless onboarding process that effectively integrates new employees into the company culture, especially in a remote or hybrid work environment?
Thanks, Rakhi. Very relevant question. And I'm glad that this was directed to me, given that my previous organization was completely remote. I think onboarding is often like swept under the carpet, and it's more seen as an operational activity. Very important activity because you're not just integrating regular employees, you're also integrating leaders into the organization and integrating them into your ways of doing things rather than them just continuing what they've learned. And again, I can just speak from experience and what has worked and what has not worked. I think today, a lot of people feel that if you're technologically enabling onboarding, that is good enough. Yes, the bells and whistles are important, but the basics still need to be there in terms of actually showcasing the values and principles on which the organization is built and how the policies are derived from them. Because that then demonstrates very clearly to any new joiner as to what is going to be rewarded at work, what is not necessarily appreciated at work, and then they can build from there, right? So I think that's one often missed out sort of aspect in the entire thing around, okay, let's give out a lot of swag, let's give out fancy bags and bottles, let's ensure that the best quality Mac reaches the person on time. All of these are important, and I'm not belittling it. But then everything that we do needs to reflect what the company stands for in some form or the other, right? Like for example, if Amazon were to be doing remote onboarding and they do not necessarily have the onboarding logistics out to the candidate prospective employee on time, that then is a complete 360-degree turn on their promise of customer being at the center of the experience, right? Similarly, let's say our previous company, which was remote completely, if we didn't have our logistics in place to ensure people are enabled on day one with a laptop and a strong internet connection, etc., there's no way they would be onboarded, right? The other thing in, well, in a remote or a hybrid setup is the actual in-person piece in some form. So a lot of companies are pure remote, and I can't speak for them, but companies like my previous organization or organizations that I know of have some element of social integration, physical social integration as well, so that people experience the culture of the company beyond just the Zoom screens or Microsoft Teams screens, right? Be it WeWork spaces for collaboration, or be it like a grand, get together at every quarter just to celebrate, align, and then go away and work. So I think all of these elements would help any person integrate well into an organization remotely or hybridly. Right. So I'll take a pause there. And Renjith, would love to hear if you have anything else to add here.
No, I think what you have said would resonate with everybody who's there today with us. And very well.
You need some water?
Yeah, I'll just drink some water. Yeah, I think that was a lot to take in, maybe for me, that is why. But no, but everything that you said, I think would resonate very well with all of us. And when it comes to, we talk about, especially after the pandemic, the hybrid work culture, it's important that there is perfect integration when we talk about hybrid workplace in terms of technology and also human, connection between the employees. Until we have that connection, until there's a connect with leadership, management and the employees at the fresher level also, they will not feel connected. So I think connection is very important there, and technology is helping us drive that along with other initiatives that you mentioned. So thank you, Abhishek, for setting up the context for us today. Now moving to my next question to Renjith. Now taking a step further, let's talk about strategies. What strategies can HR professionals implement to address the unique challenges of onboarding remote workers, ensuring that they feel connected and engaged from the very beginning?
Yeah. Thanks, Raki. In fact, speaking about strategy, the onboarding activity itself, if considered to be a strategic initiative, organization can change the entire landscape. While we speak about the need for onboarding, Abhishek was mentioning about the cultural collaboration, the connectivity with the leadership, with the mission of the organization. Why? I mean, what is the purpose you have joined this organization and all those things. So there is a lot of meaning connected from this point to the new joiner, saying that new joiner always becomes confused on day one. I mean, have I joined at the right place, or is it a right decision what I've taken, or can I contribute to this organization the same way or in a better way than my previous organization? Or if that person is a fresher, there will be furthermore questions in his or her mind regarding the productivity, the performance, the incentives, the cultural amalgamation. A lot of questions would be there. Addressing each of this is the need of the organization, because for an organization, it's very important for its new joiner to be productive at the earliest. If not day one, at least 3 months down the line, this person needs to be productive, right? This person needs to be contributing to the larger organization agenda. So how do we ensure that this transformation or this amalgamation is very smooth and seamless? So that's where the strategic objective comes in, and it's a leadership call. Mostly, as Abhishek rightly mentioned, onboarding is considered to be a transactional activity. It's very generic, because I've seen many of the leaders just mentioning that, okay, some junior HR executive would be charting up the entire activity, and he or she would be running the entire show. Rather than that, if the leader can schedule or charter how this entire experience takes up. So here I want to bring in the topic of employee experience, wherein that is the crux of today's employee or the talent mobility. So if the employee gets the right experience on day one, there is a high chance that this person tends to continue with the organization longer. If the day one experience is, not great, there is a natural tendency in the minds of employees saying that, oh, have I landed up a wrong place? So this is where the strategic objective comes to the mind. And if the leaders can devote time in defining the borders and the boundaries of this onboarding, how a person should feel while undergoing this entire onboarding strategy, it's very important. So I have undergone different onboarding in my various of my organizations. One of it, I had a 90-day onboarding chart scheduled on day one and handed over to me on day one. So my 90 days was fixed, and there was clear plan. So what does this mean to the new joiner? Oh, I've joined a place where I am valued. My joining is being looked upon. The organization would require my contribution or my seamless onboarding into the system, so that I become productive as soon as possible. So this is where, and surprisingly, this organization also had shared this schedule to all the possible people whom I would meet in these 90 days, so that that connect is also was very seamless. Of course, this was pre-COVID era. The post-COVID era, a lot of things have changed. Technology has made us more comfortable in terms of scheduling all these activities, seeing the screen. That's where Abhishek's point of connecting with the people came into mind. So these are the strategic decisions which leaders need to take. And I'll take a pause here and hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Renjith, for that. I think yes, because when a person joins a new organization, if they are given directions, it always helps. If you are joining in, it's just very natural to us as human beings, right? When we are at a new place and if we have directions, we always feel a little safer. So when it comes to organizations as well, if we are in our onboarding process itself, if we are given directions, if we have connect with who we are reporting to, who are all our, our teammates are, it always helps us get engaged better, and it also adds to our productivity that we spoke of. Also, you mentioned about employee experience. I think you rightly mentioned that when we have a good onboarding experience, it automatically adds value to the employee experience at large. So thank you, Renjith, for sharing that, and some of the strategies that you shared, that how important it is to have that connection between leadership teams, management, and the employees who are joining. So thank you. I'll take it from there and move to the technology aspect of it. Abhishek, what role does digital transformation play in streamlining onboarding processes, and how can technology be leveraged to create a consistent and engaging experience for all employees?
Sure. And I like the way you phrased it. Technology is an enabler and not at the center of it, right? At the center of it is the organization and the employee who's coming in. So there are multiple things that can be done, and during COVID, a lot of these were done because people didn't have a choice and they were forced to do it. Post-COVID, companies still continue to do it to be able to achieve scale, right? And that's the major help that technology can do in a post-COVID world, where we are looking at leveraging, let's say, metaverse to ensure that the onboarding experience is more immersive, right? You're actually talking to personas. Um, Zoom and Teams is a given today, right? Also, to produce like a seamless, consistent experience, you're not necessarily then dependent on actual people doing those sessions every time. There could be recorded bits that are provided, and the rest can be answered through FAQs. Brings in more efficiency, allows people to onboard at their own pace, and then allows the personal element as well in terms of addressing any open questions. Um, what I've also seen work really well is people using collaboration tools very strongly, right? So be it Slack or other collaboration tools, just to get to know people well. And then there are add-ons to it which will help. I remember when in COVID, we realized that people were joining, and while the onboarding experience was great, but then integration in the organization was limited to just their team, right? Because there were no water cooler conversations or lunch table conversations. That was taken away. So there was this add-on, I don't remember the exact name, on Slack, which will actually, it's like speed dating, right? It'll just pair up people from within the organization and start a group chat and say that, hey, should we schedule a meeting to get to know each other? And which was great. Initially, it seemed really forced, but then it was great. And it was called Donut. Yes, it was called Donut. And yeah, I met some really, really interesting people from Ireland and US, which I otherwise wouldn't have interacted with on a day-to-day basis, right? So that, and again, the list goes on. What I've realized is that the tech ecosystem in India is really smart, and whenever there is an opportunity like this, and people have grabbed COVID and remote as an opportunity to actually extend their offerings. There are these event management companies which were forced to do virtual events, right? And they created platforms. Now, those platforms, while they're created for events, imagine the same thing being created for onboarding. Like, you have a simulated office, there's a check-in reception, you go check in there, everything's happening on your screen, but then the entire walkthrough is an office experience, right? So I think people have been really innovative, and technology can be customized to deliver really, really innovative solutions. But then, like I said, the plan for onboarding to be a strategic element in the HR roadmap needs to be really clear in the leader's mind, in the HR leader's mind, because else it'll just be a 1-day activity, 2-day activity, and then actual integration of the person will not happen, right? So I think technology can help that, accelerate that, the actual integration of the person beyond the day 1 and day 2 as well.
Sure. Thank you, Abhishek, for that. You talked about that really interesting tool that helps people collaborate, and there's a meeting set up by Donut. That was like really interesting. I'm sure a lot of people might have experienced something like that. But yes, when we talk about how technology, we would often hear, especially our older generation, talk about how technology has separated people, or there's a distance now. But it honestly depends on how you're utilizing that technology, because we have seen not just in the IT industry itself, technology is basically spread across in every industry today, and people are utilizing it to collaborate better, even in fact, when we talk about HR and we talked about the onboarding process. With onboarding process, there's also recruitment that we use AI tools. There's L&D initiatives that we can enhance with technology. So there's a lot that technology has done good for us, and according to our requirements and objectives, I think there's a lot of technological solutions which are available in the market that we could go out and check out and see if that works for us or not. And all these technology also comes with a trial period. So I think if it would come to actually interacting with humans, and if we had that, if we could see a prologue of that would always help us understand human beings better. But I think technology gives us that to experiment with. Thank you for sharing your views on that, Abhishek. Now moving on to talking about the diverse workforce that we have today. Now when it comes to onboarding, previously there was like at least, a physical connect. So I could look at your face and I could understand your body language. I could know, okay, where are you from? What's your dialect like and all of that. But when it comes to virtual onboarding, there's a lot of changes, a lot of new things that come in with it. Renjith, as we workplaces diversify in terms of today age, background, skill set, what strategies do you think should be implemented during onboarding to ensure inclusivity and equitable support for all employees, regardless where they are where they are from, or what kind of generation it is? Is it Gen Z or millennials? So what do you have to talk about that? What kind of strategies should HR professionals be implementing?
Yeah, thanks for the question. In fact, I was just going back to Abhishek's point, where he mentioned about technology as an enabler, and technology helps you scale up. So the advantage is standardization and scaling up is the core of technology with which we can send same experience to multiple people. However, there is an inclusivity or a diversity angle to it. Not everyone might be comfortable with technology and things like that. So while we define the strategies for onboarding and induction, it's very pertinent for organizations to define the communication baseline. What are the key areas which or key messages which the organization want to communicate to the end consumer or this new employee, new joiner? The communication strategy needs to be very clear. The documents, what is being handed over, this has to be a standardized thing. And technology definitely helps or enables all this with the same platform given to everyone. I mean, he was also mentioning about connecting with people who are outside the country, otherwise would not have met with us during the induction program. So these are some of the areas where organizations need to understand the changes in people, in human beings' psychology. That okay, I'm not alone. I'm connecting with a person in the US, sitting here, discussing with him or her, with their expectations, with their first point of contact being me, or so these are the discussions with which a new joiner starts his or her day. So the millennials are completely connected with the digital world. I mean, most of them. I would not generalize it though. Most of them would be comfortable working with the computer screen. However, the older generation are the ones which are possibility of disconnecting with the screen induction. I would also bring a diversity of the kind of workforce as well. Say, for example, we are not discussing only with the permanent employees. We have gig workforces, we have freelancers, we have contract employees. A lot of different kinds of employees are there who are joining. So with the advent of technology, it's very convenient for the person who is managing this entire induction to execute this induction program in a right, robust manner with the help of right communication methods, with proper use of technology like the ones he mentioned about Slack, or we used to have mentors in the pre-COVID era, where the mentors were assigned to the new joiner, and this person would make him or her comfortable in the system. So the integration was more seamless. So these are the areas where the HR leader can strategize and say that these are the messages or these are the checkpoints with which I am looking at for this entire induction program. So having a strong strategy is definitely look out for HR leaders here.
Sure. Thank you, Renjith, for that. I think you talked about communication. With like there are a lot of skills that we talk about, technologies and technical solutions, but communication is something that has to be there regardless what kind of profile you are in. right? If you're communicating your objectives well, we talk about onboarding process and how to make these new employees feel connected with the company. We have to be very clear in communicating our company's values, our mission, our vision for the future. They will also feel connected, even if I am somebody who's joining as a fresher, but I know, okay, this is how my work or what I would do positively impact the company value and the end mission. I think that would help me also feel motivated from the very beginning, and I would also streamline things, in a better way for myself as to how I progress from here. Also, you talk about documentations and the various operational tasks. I think which earlier would be taken by our HR professionals, but can be now done through technology also, which is also helping them save their time and they can focus more on strategizing better rather than in these operational tasks. So thank you for all the points that you mentioned and the diverse workforce that we are in today. Moving on to my next question with Abhishek. In a world where remote work is becoming increasingly prevalent, how can companies redefine flexible work to accommodate various roles, industries, and employee preferences? Because today, I think it was just at the beginning of the pandemic that, okay, flexible work was something not a lot of companies would do previously. After that, it has now become a norm. But when we talk about flexible work, there's a lot of factors that come in. My role, there are these, technical roles, or of maybe somebody who's working as a financial in the finance profile. They might have to come to office, so there would be some factors attached to it. So what do you think, how we can redefine flexible work?
Sure. So, I mean, for me, it'll start from the work itself, right? Evaluating what activities that work requires, how much of interaction that work requires, and how much of a dependency physical infrastructure has for that work. For example, someone who's working in a data center, even if we are completely remote as a company, a data center engineer will still have to be sitting out of the data center, right? If you're looking at, let's say, an admin person who's managing, let's say, front desk or whatever, will technically have to be in office. It's very difficult to imagine that role also being done completely remotely, right? So clearly defining the parameters of the role, the interfaces of that role, and then figuring whether it's remote friendly or not, right? So that's probably the first step. The second would be to see how some of these dependencies can be done remotely through technology. Let's say recruiting can completely be done remotely, right? But the context of the organization is important. Now, if it's a high touch organization where decisions are made huddled over a whiteboard, simulating that immediately even through technology remotely can be difficult, right? So while recruiting, which technically can be done remotely in most setups, even there would be nuances depending on the context of the organization, right? Technology work, coders doing their work, writing code, deploying code, in principle can be done remotely. However, if it's a really early stage startup and you're also brainstorming ideas around what the product build is going to be like, what the trade-offs are going to be like, what the technical debt is going to be like, then you would require some element of personal connect or in-person time, right? So which is where there cannot be a clear-cut benchmarking that, hey, GitLab's born remote, I can go remote just by looking at the templates that they have. And they actually have been very gracious. They have all their templates available for public consumption. But does that mean that any other company can just pick those templates up and apply and become completely remote? Maybe not, right? We tried in my previous company, and even there we had to tweak a lot of things. Similar companies, SaaS, heavily technology-centered companies, but then still there were nuances because of which we had to tweak things around. Now with remote, what is also important is, one is obviously a company which is born remote. Obviously, the policies are tailored towards remote. However, a company which is born physical and then goes remote or hybrid, they can't just lift and shift the same policies, right? Because there are longer hours. With remote, one of the boons is flexibility. Banes is longer hours and fatigue, screen fatigue, etc. So the wellness time required for people is much higher, right? So then people will have to look at the leave policy potentially, which might seem like a very simple lift and shift. How does it matter, physical to remote? But yes, it matters. Most companies which have gone remote have either increased their sick leave / leaves per se disproportionately, or they've just removed the cap. There's no cap. Like previous company, we removed the cap. We said you can take leaves depending on how you want to plan your work, let your manager know, and unlimited leaves, right? Sends out a really strong message to the workforce that we really care for their well-being. But then they are also then responsible for their own work and how they craft their work. There would be policies around setting up an internet-friendly workplace, like a place in Mumbai where space is scarce. Imagine having to ask people to work remotely, where the entire family probably sits out of one room, right? So then how do you really enable that? Maybe provide them passes for WeWork access, right? People who are working very remote, let's say really northeast, or they want to work out of the mountains, they would need an internet policy to be able to upgrade the internet plans. So I think it cannot be one size fits all. There needs to be flexibility is the name of the game when it comes to policy making for flexible work as well.
Thank you, Abhishek, for bringing in different perspectives on this. You rightly mentioned that, we talk about flexible work these days a lot. It's like a very light term that we've been throwing around, but to navigate through it is very important. It's very crucial that we do it the right way, because as you mentioned, there are different people working from different geographies, and if they have the resources to work remotely or not is probably one of the most crucial factors in determining if we are going to give them remote work or not, and also depending upon the profile that they are in. Even if this is something that they can work remotely, do you require a certain, sort of team building physical activities where probably once in a month or twice in a month, you guys sit together and strategize and think about what's next. So there's a lot of factors that come in, but yeah, this is where I think the HR roles come in, and making such policies that are also are also suitable for all, but also at the same time are specific to each and everybody's needs, as as per from their profile and from where they are joining, because yeah, it's very important, because today as you mentioned, one model cannot fit all. If something which is working for probably great HR might not work for an XYZ company, so we have to be very specific, and we should know what exactly our requirements are, and then we should navigate that. So thank you, Abhishek, for setting that up for us. Moving on to my next question to Renjith. We have talked about onboarding strategies, the kind of policies or the kind of tools and technologies that we can implement, but how can we measure if something is working out for us or not? Renjith, what do you think? How can organizations effectively measure the success of their onboarding strategies in a world where remote work and flexible arrangements are the norm, and the metrics? What kind of metrics should be considered while measuring the onboarding program success?
Yeah, HR nowadays is always behind the metrics and measurements, because HR is also becoming a function which is more value adding, or which want to perceive as value adding. So definitely there is a improvement or a measurement which is definitely required behind it. So the first measure I would say is always on the pulse surveys, which organizations generally do. There are, we have been fans of employee engagement service. Since time immemorial, possibly for the last 15-20 years, organizations are doing employee engagement surveys. But however, today people are looking at, say, pulse surveys every day. What is your pulse? What does the employee connect with the organization? How is the employee feeling? mentioning about the work-life balances, what today flexible workforce faces. So, I mean, especially when this person is out there in his or her own home, and we don't know what this person is having the facilities there. So, providing wearables or providing timely connect sessions or sending them some inputs or uh, getting a better work-life balance. These are some of the areas where real-time connect with the employee, with the person, can be achieved. HR persons, again, there is no one size fits all kind of a model here. But however, majorly the measurements looks at where are you currently, where do you want to reach, or what is the measure you have defined yourself, how fast or how quick you want to reach there. So is it only the numbers what you're looking at, or is it the quality also what is being focused on? So mostly when we run behind the numbers, so especially in these pulse surveys or the engagement surveys, our HR people are running behind the numbers, and we just track how many, or the generalized way of looking at it. However, there is uh, uh, adverse element to it, wherein every person, every employee is unique. Say, for example, in a team, if there are say 15 members, not everyone would be, I mean, feeling the same. Even if we take the numbers as a measure, we take pulse surveys, we say that, okay, one person mentioned 50%, another person mentioned a 95%, the average comes to around 75 to 80. And we say, okay, the team is well engaged. However, there are cases where we have 50s also or 60s also there. So how do we ensure that these guys are also being connected? These guys are also being ensured that they are included. So this is where HR leaders need to go into qualitative figures or qualitative numbers. So in the pre-COVID or the pre-hybrid era, we had the coffee with HRs and all those things. We try to replicate such initiatives through virtual mode. Again, it is adding to the screen time for the employees. Their fatigue increases. All these things are there. However, we can still look at connecting with them with the monthly connects checkpoints or monthly, team building days and all those things. So these are the add-ons which organizations can always look at. How do I qualitatively measure this input? I would say, don't go by one method of measuring it just by the emotions or just by the system numbers. It's also about this conversation with people. So the HR people need to connect with them on a day-to-day basis. See, there should be targets for the HR team members, that how many employees you have touched today. So that could be one of the measures for the HR business partner, that, okay, these are the number of employees I need to speak to. I need to understand their concerns. I need to understand how they are feeling. Are they comfortable? These are the thoughts I have while speaking about measures in mind.
Sure. Thank you, Renjith. I think that really helps us understand the value of Connect when it comes to virtual onboarding or virtual work, for that matter. And also, I think one thing is data analytics can also help us understand, what is it that is working for us? What is it that requires, more attention? And it can be specific to each requirement that we have at hand. So thank you, Renjith, for that. I think we already are closing on the time, so I'll just before we dive into the audience Q&A, I'll just ask you both. I'll start with Abhishek. Looking ahead, we have already discussed, what has been the experience like, what are the areas that HR professionals need to focus on, and how virtual onboarding and flexible work, for that matter, has been changing the way we work today in terms of the different profiles that we have. So looking ahead, what trends do you see for shaping the landscape of workforce empowerment through onboarding and flexible work, and how can organizations prepare to embrace these changes proactively?
So I see the trend continuing. I do not necessarily see remote work as the only way of work. Hybrid is potentially the way to go. And again, if you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 opinions on this. So this is my opinion. So for me, I think hybrid is the way to go because companies are also looking at rationalizing costs as well as increasing access to talent, and people have gotten used to a certain way of working. That said, I know the value of working in person and collaborating, especially when you're managing a team, aligning people, celebrating together, public appreciation, all of that, right? So hybrid for me would be the way to go, and technology is going to continue to enable the remote part of that hybrid, right? While there are interesting challenges that will come up though. Like for example, you talked about inclusion. Now imagine a hybrid setup where I am working remote that particular day or that particular week, but my rest of my team is there in person in a conference room. I join through a Zoom call. I miss out on all the side banter. I'm just there trying to figure out what's happening, right? It has huge implications of how someone over a prolonged period of time, if this happens, how that person feels included or excluded from the organization, right? Or from the team for that matter. Similarly, like if everyone's remote or everyone's in person, it's a much easier modality, but hybrid will bring about some of these aspects, or the perceived distance from a manager. Like I have my team members working with my manager in office, I am remote. Are they getting promoted? Are they getting more visibility, right? So I think those are certain aspects that HR and leaders in general need to work through, and there needs to be change management there. I think technology, what history and time has shown us, as human beings, we are curious, we will enable and embrace technology, but it's some of these software elements which will cause the enablement or the uptake of technology to break. So if you are conscious of some of these, I think we should be good.
Sure, I think we will all agree when you said, that there has to be, you understand, the perceived distance from the manager. Obviously, we all want to be in the same boat when it comes to things like that, because it's much safer. We feel understood. We feel like, okay, equal opportunities for all. But when there is a little barrier, or when I'm operating from somewhere and the other person has, is operating from somewhere and they have different connects, we might feel a little dejected, or there are things like that that would naturally come to mind. So I think for me also, I would agree that hybrid is the way forward. If there is perfect integration between remote, like working from home and office, I think there has to be that perfect blend. And in order to do that, I think there's a lot that there is a scope for HR, that we can experiment more. And as you rightly mentioned, technology is also innovated by us. It's humans. We have been hearing about how ChatGPT is going to take away our jobs, but ChatGPT is something that we humans have only built. So when it comes to technology, it's only here to upskill ourselves. It is an enabler, and it is only going to help us streamline things better and work in a better way, instead of just taking away everything that human connect. So thank you, Abhishek, for your concluding thoughts. I'll just quickly ask Renjith to also share his views on this.
Yes, the trend of hybrid is going to stay, though we hear a lot of Googles and the Amazons looking at work from office, or bringing back to office kind of a workforce. But there are challenges like what Abhishek was mentioning about optimizing cost, space. That itself is a big challenge, because organizations have been scaling up. Because business have been building up, and they have not invested on building. So there's a concern in terms of the space provided. So hybrid is going to be the model. In fact, we also heard about freelance working, gig working models, and all those things where organizations would take the talent fungibility to a larger level. Say today, organizations are hiring not only from India. If it is an Indian company, they are also hiring from Sri Lanka, Philippines, Manila, or Singapore, or parts of the world. So I cannot bring them back to office in today's scenario. So once in a while we can bring them all, but setting up a full-time office work from office model is not going to be practical hereafter. So organizations are thinking about definitely on the hybrid model, how to improve the productivity, how to improve the performance measurement, and also on parallel, how do I ensure that employees are being connected, employees are being felt like home, or they are not given too much of fatigue and all those things. So sorry, yeah, these are the uh, pointers which organizations need to keep in mind while thinking about the hybrid mindset. My pointers in terms of inclusivity are that not everyone would be comfortable with the technologies what you use, as an organization you use. So giving them a support in terms of onboarding or induction, giving them some hindsight about what is going on in this organization. For example, when I joined the company during the pandemic, I was totally confused on the technologies being used in that organization. So it's very important for organizations to handhold these employees to the technologies or to the methods of this organization. Okay, this is how we conduct interviews. This is how we conduct performance appraisals. This is how we interact with employees. This is the way we work. So this cultural integration is extremely important, and I believe technology is again as an enabler will help us support this entire initiative, but HR has to ensure that the communication message is being very strong. The purpose of this entire induction is being very clear. Also encourage feedback. So it's always important that HR people need to take a lot of feedback. What do they feel? What does that the employees want to say to you? Are they comfortable? Are they feeling something challenging? Are they? It's not only just taking surveys or taking dipsticks to the employees, but it's more about connecting with them, understanding their real pulse on how do they feel, the human angle to it. So these are some of the thoughts I have in mind while speaking about the entire onboarding in flexible scenario. So keep in mind on the diversity part. Not everyone feels like me. Not everyone thinks like me. Not everyone behaves like me. So there are differences. There are challenges faced by people. Accept it. Help them understand your ways of working and move ahead.
Thank you so much, Renjith, for that. What I can, take away from it is communication is very important right from the start. When we onboard people, it is very important that we make them feel heard. We make them connect with the management, the leadership, and also make them aware about the various initiatives and the policies that we have. Second is DEIB. I think there's a lot of focus on diversity, inclusion, belongingness at workplace, and it's important that our strategies are being made and implemented in a way that it is equal for all, and they feel heard. They have the opportunity to share their voice, and the feedback mechanism also that you talked about. That nothing will work out. You won't know what is working for us, what is not, until you have the feedback with you. And it's in a virtual setup or in a hybrid or in a remote work setup. It's very important that we thrive on this feedback, because it is important that we know that these are the areas that we probably need to focus more on. So thank you, Renjith, for that. So what I can take away from this is this has been definitely a very insightful conversation. Thank you to you both, Abhishek and Renjith, for sharing great insights with us, the different technologies that we talked about and the different factors that determine what is it that will be the trend ahead, or what is it that we can look forward to. I think there's also one thing that would be a lot trending in the coming years is co-working spaces. Even if we have my location as Bangalore or Hyderabad or Mumbai or Chennai for that matter, but if I'm operating from say North Chandigarh and I have some, we have some employees here, we could have these small co-working spaces where we are meeting in a month, or, connecting with each other. So that could also help us maybe integrate better, there would be better integration between culture, technology, and people. So thank you so very much once again for all your insights. We have a question from the audience. I think we'll just take this up and we'll wrap the session, because I think a lot of it we've already discussed. But this one question is how to track status of each department's target without using any project management tools. I think this is something that we'll have to ponder upon. So either of you would want to take this question up?
I can take a stab at it first. Like, you cannot. There has to be some instrumentation, right? That said, in an ideal world, you don't need to track, because each department will know what their goals are and they will be accountable for their goals. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, and hence you would need to have some instrumentation around it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very fancy project management tool. It can just be a RYG status update on a spreadsheet, but then it'll still have to be there for driving accountability. And that's just my view. But like I said, in an ideal world, every department will know what they have to do and they'll do it.
Sure. Thank you. I hope that answers the question. Anything that you would also like to add on, Renjith, to it?
Yeah, this question is interesting. I mean, in fact, the person, has mentioned it correctly, that project management is just a tool, or project management tools are just tools to evaluate. It's just a method in which you evaluate. So Abhishek was also mentioning that there should be some measure, some method in which we understand whether it is on track or not, because the organization is always looking at whether I'm able to deliver something on a given target date. So a simple red, amber, green also would work. An Excel sheet, red, amber, green, pick down the tasks and spread it across. So it's not about using fancy tools. It's about measuring the productivity. So that is the crux of entire productivity enhancement. Understand, say, earlier in the physical world, in the pre-COVID era, such project management tools were very minimally used, because most of the managers would see his or her team members and understand what they're doing. So by default, they were not using it. But today, because of this remote working, they are forced to use it. But I mean, there is no mandate that we should use some fancy softwares. It's just simple Excel sheet also would work. Even not even Excel sheet, a simple Word file also would work. It's only about what we are communicating, what we are checking, or what we are evaluating. That's the point.
Yeah, I think if we know our requirements, we can do it. And as you rightly mentioned, there's no fancy tool as such, or an AI software that we have to grab and start working on it. And Excel would work fine. And when we talk about, I think, tracking anything or measuring anything, it has to do a lot with data. So if you're documenting that data, it would only help you realize, the results for you. So thank you, Renjith and Abhishek. I think we're already touching our time, so I'll quickly wrap up. Can we have the screen, please? Thank you. So once again, thank you so very much, Abhishek and Renjith. It was a pleasure speaking to you both today on this topic. And I'm sure there's a lot that our audience has taken from this discussion today. Thanks a lot to our audience as well, who joined us to make this more successful. And if you still have any questions, we have a Grey Tribe community that you can see on screen. It is a knowledge sharing platforms where we have experts, HR professionals who can guide you with your any doubts or questions that you have. So please feel free to sign in today, and we'll see you there. And if you have any more questions left, please write to rakhi.gautam@greytip.com, and we will get back to you. As for the recording also, it will be shared with you by next week and also be available on our greytHR YouTube channel. So thank you so very much once again, everybody. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Renjith. And we will see you all in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure connecting with you.